I'm asked to introduce myself, I don't usually start by saying that I'm a Christian. Okay. I start by saying that I'm a Palestinian with strong Armenian roots, with a commitment to serve Palestine as a whole. I am a product of the Palestine that was pre the State of Israel, with a birth certificate that says Palestine. And I think I have inherited that vision of that beautiful geographical spot that is a melting pot of different ethnic groups, which in my Christian faith is also the cradle of Christianity, but also the source of Judaism and Islam. So I come with that background, dispossessed in 1948, a refugee in my own city, Jerusalem. And since I'm asked only to talk about life under occupation, let me just begin by saying that 1967, for people like myself who were dispossessed and refugees, was a landmark that was predicting a continuation of a Nakba, the dispossession. Okay? And yet, the first week, we were stunned. We didn't expect an occupation that would be 40 years today. And in our simple Palestinian, naive way, we were hoping that the UN resolutions that had not been implemented since 1948 would really materialize and the UN would become the active peacekeeping core that it should be. Okay? So we were so happy to have resolutions 224, 338, and we said, okay, the world is now going to make justice. Okay. Israel has occupied territory, the 22% of traditional historical Palestine, and according to international law, this is illegal. So the world is finally going to move to make justice for the Palestinians. We didn't know what form it would take, but at least we knew that we would be recognized as a people with equal rights in the land. And we have been waiting. 40 years after, I and the Palestinian people are stateless, and we are still waiting for the UN and the world bodies, the superpowers, to do what they should be doing, bring peace to the Middle East. Okay. I am no politician, but I will advise you to read a very important book written by a Jewish professor in Haifa University, Ilan Pappé. The book is called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. That really goes through the history of Zionism, but in particular, the plans that were carefully drawn out even before the British mandate ended. And in that period, since November 47 and May 15th, which was the partition plan and the moving away of the British mandate, there is a series of attacks on Arab villages that have driven out the population, Palestinian Muslims and Christians equally. And by July of 1948, most of the 531 villages in the Galilee and in the area were either totally erased to the ground or depopulated. Okay. So it is clear that there is a plan. There is a plan that does not include the Palestinian people. Okay. Strangely enough, I was on the Bill Good talk yesterday, and one of the questions was, okay, if we were to put aside the occupation, then how would you do peace, you know? And let's forget the occupation for a moment. And I said, I cannot forget the occupation for a moment because the occupation is still going on. So no matter what efforts you try to do, there is still something, a yoke on my shoulders that you have to lift up. Because as long as you are oppressed, you cannot lift up your head. I can work, as Sabeel does, with all the human rights organizations, with our Muslim brothers and sisters, with the secular Jewish groups and some religious groups, but it's not going to bring a solution because the fact remains that there is an oppressive occupation that is not allowing us to breathe. And that is the big challenge that I face today and that I'm posing to you. What can we all do together to end this occupation, to put pressure on our governments as much as we can, to try to change the attitude of the superpower, the USA? I mean, there is a little hope when you hear somebody like Bush saying, we think it is time that the Palestinians have a state. Of course, you all may realize that I am not a national of the State of Israel because I am not Jewish. I have an identity card that says I'm a resident of Jerusalem. I pay taxes in Jerusalem. I'm a Palestinian who does not have a Palestinian passport, who has the Palestinian feelings to build our country. And yet, officially, I'm stateless, okay? And sometimes when I'm entering into different countries and they ask, where were you born? And I write Jerusalem and I write Palestine, because in 1947, there was no Israel, okay? They refuse that and they scratch it out. The myth that there was a majority of Christians and that they are leaving because of the persecution by Muslims and other things is really a myth. I mean, ever since the 5th century, or maybe even before that, there has never been a majority of Christians in the Holy Land or the Middle East. We have always been, in the total of the Middle East, between 10 and 12%. It varies from one country to the other. Okay? That there is immigration today among Palestinian Christians, but also Palestinian Muslims and Jews who are leaving the country. It's because of the instability, lack of security, and for the Palestinians, poverty, no job opportunities, a complete isolation because of the building of the wall, which Steve called fence, because in some places it is a fence, but it is an electrified fence in many places. Those of you who have been in the country have seen the monstrosity of the wall. Now in some places, it is more artistic, so that the Israelis can look at a beautiful wall and forget that there are Palestinians living behind that.